Hi, my name is Charlie McGrath. I'm the founder of WideAwakeNews.com and a host on the Rinse Radio Network. How many more of our sons and our daughters, our brothers and sisters, our husbands and wives, are we going to sit by and watch be led to the slaughter? How many more people around this world are going to die before we take our attention away from Miley Cyrus and pop culture infotainment and understand what is happening every single day in our names? Please, bear with me. Bear with me, because I'm going to read you some quotes that we must not let escape into history. We must not forget about, because they're coming back to use these same exact tactics on the people of this world once again. Bear with me. Simply stated, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein possesses weapons of mass destruction. Dick Cheney, 2002. Right now, Iraq is expanding its facilities to produce weapons of mass destruction. George Bush, 2002. No state possesses a greater or more immediate threat to the world. So says Don Rumsfeld, 2002. If he says he doesn't have them, then we know he's misleading the world again. We know for a fact Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. Ari Fleischer, press secretary, 2002. Intel estimates that Saddam Hussein can produce 500 tons of VX, sarin, and mustard gas. George W. Bush, State of the Union, January 2003, just a few months before we went into war. He also went on to say he has authorized his commanders to use chemical weapons in the field. Intel gathered by this government and others leaves no doubt that the regime possesses WMDs. George Bush, March 2003, right before we invaded. It wasn't just this band of Bush appointees and Bush administration officials. Jay Rockefeller said, there is unmistakable evidence he is working to obtain and develop nuclear weapons, and we will have this capacity within 5 years. And Hillary Clinton goes on to say in 2002, Intel shows Saddam has worked to rebuild his chemical and biological weapons and giving aid and comfort to terrorists such as Al-Qaeda, and left unchecked will continue to produce WMDs and expand his program. Didn't just stop with Rockefeller or Clinton. We had John Kerry, presidential nominee John Kerry, Blue Team John Kerry. We're in possession of what I think is compelling evidence that Saddam Hussein is developing capacities for WMD. January, right before we went to war, 2003. I believe a deadly arsenal of WMDs in the hands is a grave threat to our security, so says John Kerry and the rest of his cronies in Washington, D.C., October of 2002. What was the guaranteed by these officials? This isn't folks just making this stuff up, right? These are the folks that are in charge of the intelligence agencies. These are the folks that have been elected to protect and serve the people of this country. They're so sure that they led this nation into war in 2003, that the WMDs were about to infest and take over that region of the world and be a grave threat to our security. What was the results of this assured fact that WMDs exist inside of Iraq? Casualties in the Iraq War. Since Operation New Dawn, 66 Americans dead. Since the Obama inauguration, 256 Americans dead. Since the handover to Iraq in 2004, 3,627 Americans dead. Since mission accomplished in 2003, 4,347 American men and women killed, and since the start of the Iraq War, 4,488. How many wounded? Official totals, 32,021. Unofficial estimates, well over 100,000. 319 coalition troops dead. Contractors, U.S. contractors, 1,487 killed. Journalists and academics, over 700. And let's not forget the toll on the people of Iraq. An estimated 1.45 million Iraqis dead. So when you know this information that has been used in the past to lead this nation and the world into war, you better think twice. You better think for yourself instead of following pop culture infotainment when John Kerry once again is drugged before the cameras, this time as Secretary of the State, and says that the use of chemical weapons in the attack on the civilians is definitely 100% linked to the Syrian government, and this administration is going to hold them accountable. And of course, the report goes on to say intelligence agencies will release info in the next few days that bolsters the case of WMD use by the Assad government. And of course, just to cover the tracks in case they don't find any evidence, Kerry's saying that Assad has spent the last 5 days shelling the area, so any evidence that could be there might have already been blown away. But that's not going to stop the press for war inside of Syria. 2-year-long civil war, groups that are in there as freedom fighters that we absolutely 100% know are Al-Qaeda. The same individuals, the same organizations that this world and this country has been led into war for over the past decade. These numbers that we're talking about here, thousands and thousands of Americans dead, millions of people around this world dead, governments toppled, nations destabilized, all for the pursuit of Al-Qaeda and terrorist groups. These are the folks who were saying that Assad's government used chemical weapons. These are the folks we are about to go in and support. In fact, the al-Nusra Front and Al-Qaeda on this very day pledge revenge against Assad and his government forces for using chemical weapons that occurred 5 days ago, this chemical weapon attack. It seems that John Kerry, the Brits, the French, and everybody else who's a New World Order player is stepping up so that they can say, yes, we're on board on this great coalition of the willing to go in and topple a regime for WMDs. When on earth are we going to wake up to realize one piece of propaganda regurgitated over and over and over again is not a reason to go into war? We would have to be absolutely, completely naive to fall for this again. Yet, we have a populace that's more concerned about the kickoff of the NFL season or what Miley Cyrus did on some program last night. We need to wake up and realize if your child was born on 9/11, they're within striking distance of having to go serve in these sandboxes around the world for these illegitimate causes, for these reasons that are either outright lies or as an example of the absolute most unbelievable amount of failure in government in the history of this planet. We need to realize what's happening. We're being fed a bunch of garbage so that we will be the willing lambs to the slaughter. Stories are attached. That's all I got.